In the quiet sprawl of modern-day Japan, many helicopters cast long shadows over crumbling apartment complexes and school rooftops. A group of armed troops enters a basement and finds a man with his half-head cut off with a sword and bombs attached to his dead body sitting on a chair. A mighty ninja has left after finishing his work. The troops see an origami on the table. While some wish to see ninjas in real life, others feel lucky not to encounter them. On the rooftop of a building under a bleak sky, Kuro stands amid 4 other ninjas. Their gathering is anything but subtle. They all stand in full view, contrasting sharply with the stealth they claim to master. Kuro mocks Hibi, an arrogant boy, by pointing out the absurdity of posing like heroes from a weekly manga. He finds Hibi's idea of drama laughably suicidal, posing in the open on a rooftop where a single sniper could end them all. Suzuki introduces herself awkwardly. She's earnest and a little scattered, trying to make sense of her surroundings. Her real name barely matters. Like most ninjas, she has several aliases, all of which she rotates depending on the assignment. The group soon realizes they're not the only ones gathering. Across the way, another team assembles. Hachiya tells the other ninjas that their opponent group members are from a strange unit associated with the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. Known informally as the Rear Enders, these rivals present a curious image. Some wear fashion so outdated it loops back to being threatening, like fluorescent Ganguro girls reborn as paramilitary agents. Kuro squints across the gap and assesses their counterparts with the ease of someone who's lived long in the shadows. He speculates that the biggest one isn't the real threat. Convention in battle says number 2s are often the muscle and not the brain. Kuro suggests that the true leader is likely the smallest one, who doesn't seem to belong. He says the one with the simplest face. Kuro reads too much manga. Suddenly, Kuro steps forward with deliberate intent. He volunteers himself as the vanguard, warning the others not to turn the situation into some action movie fantasy. He guides Hachiya to use a laser pointer on the opponent's arm when he signals him to. Cut to a far less cinematic reality. Inside a dim and stuffy apartment, Kuro returns from another sluggish afternoon. The heat presses against his skin. He speaks with a superior who appears silently behind him. That man with spectacles and a cap on felt so mysterious that his presence seemed to evaporate from the air. Like, no career badge and no dramatic entrance, just stillness and menace. He is a career ninja who delivers missions to non-career ninjas. The career ninja does not offer small talk, just a command and a complaint about how even non-career ninjas are losing work. Their conversation circles around an increase in prison escapes, which the agency now watches with mounting concern. Kuro makes a joke which falls flat in the heat. Yet behind the half-hearted banter, the stakes are clear. If a ninja breaks regulations and deserts, erasure is the consequence. There are no appeals and no safety net. As if to underline the absurdity of their covert lives, Kuro is handed a mission in the form of a high school uniform and a hoodie. There are no detailed orders or briefings, just the implication. He needs to infiltrate, blend in and become a student at Kodan High School. However, he needs parental verification to enroll. In the world of ninjas, improvisation is survival. Kuro knocks on his neighbor's door. Ms. Kawado, a woman with the energy of a pub regular. She's hungover, possibly still drunk. She asks for toilet paper and barks at him to come inside and give her. Kuro hesitates, but she's the only woman around who can play the role of his mother, so he helps her. Later, she agrees to act as his mother. The call to the school is made. Her tone slurs with every syllable. The school secretary barely masks her concern. Kawado pushes through the charade, convincing them she's the parent of a child transferring into their ranks. He thanks her, but she asks for beer in return of the favor. He wandered to a room, helping himself to a beer from the fridge. Their apartments are mysteriously connected through a gaping hole in the wall. She mocks the difficulty of his entrance exams, confesses she dropped out of high school 3 days after starting, and pokes at his awkward backstory. Kuro's mother left after birthing him, claiming she didn't want to have this burden. His father misunderstood and reported her as the burden, and filed a bureaucratic error named their son Kuro, a literal transcription of burden. Even among ninjas, childhood trauma is sometimes just paperwork. Kuro shares his childhood friendship with a boy nicknamed Miracle, who tragically died in a lightning strike. Their laughter comes easily after that. Kawada compares Kuro to a fictional robot cat, pointing out that he sleeps on the top shelf of a closet while Ono-san takes the lower. Later that night, Ono returns home and accuses Kamada of drinking all her beer. She denies it and they start to argue. She threatens to involve the police and brings up an entirely unrelated theft in which someone stole her underwear. She accuses Ono of it. Inside a delivery car, 2 agents pore over Kuro's activity file. One is the same career ninja guy, his name is Kato. and the other healthy guy is Ozu. They're unimpressed to see that Kuro's days seem filled with lounging, theft, and general uselessness. To them, he's nothing more than a bum, but they can't ignore one detail. Despite all appearances, Kuro is the one who defeated the dangerous foreign operative. That alone elevates him above speculation. He may look like a failure, but results speak louder than posture. Outside in the city, a foreigner enters a subway station. His Japanese is clumsy, polite, but awkward. He asks where he can find ninjas. The clerk sitting there is Ozu, the same guy from the delivery bus. He responds with tired familiarity that foreigners ask this all the time. There are no ninjas to be seen. The man grows frustrated and waves what he claims is a sword. Ozu tells him to stop spreading panic on the station. The foreigner says it's just an umbrella bought at Sakusa. Ozu explains a Japanese proverb: if you throw a stone, you'll hit a ninja. The foreigner asks what it means. Ozu smiles, saying it implies that ninjas are everywhere but one will never know who they are. In the wake of World War II, occupying US forces demanded a list of all known ninja personnel from Japan's military and government. The ninja had become the greatest threat to Allied intelligence during wartime. The disbandment of ninja organizations was swift and brutal. Records were destroyed and lineages were erased. The world believed the ninja were extinct, but the world was wrong. 70 years later, new ideological, ethnic, and religious wars emerged. In these hidden battles, ninja returned, operating from the shadows, influencing governments, eliminating targets, and maintaining balance. Around 200,000 are believed to still exist, but their identities are buried within civil society. We can say they are living ghosts, protectors, or spies. The ninja never vanished, they simply adapted. The girl with weird makeup on her face comes close to fight him. He orders her to surrender, promising to spare her life. Then the question lands, sharp and sarcastic. Kuro taunts the girl for believing a national symbol can defeat a ninja. The girl pulls out a twist dagger, sleek and lethal. She boasts that the dagger can easily pierce the hoodie, even if it's reinforced. Kuro instructs her to look at the back of her hand. The girl glances down and her eyes widen as she sees a laser light on her hand. Kuro explains that no ninja would ever infiltrate enemy territory without backup. He warns her that on his signal, her arm would evaporate. Scene shifts inside the ninja's delivery van. Kato and Ozu discuss about the events that had unsettled that summer. A man had his genitals severed by a foreigner, an incident that sent ripples through the streets and the media. But deeper beneath the headlines was a dangerous implication. The foreigner had hinted at links with ninja operations. Troubled by this, the agency pulled unlikely operatives from the ranks of entertainers. The scene shifts. The foreigner in a blue hoodie stands on the top floor of a building. He says to himself that he wants to be a ninja. Children dash through alleyways, yelling at Mr. Breastmilk, a neighborhood legend and part-time lunatic. They circle around him, giggling and chanting. The foreigner saw a secret signal written on a pole in the street. He called someone in Germany to ask about its meaning. The man on the call told him that it meant that in order to meet the ninja who wrote this, he would have to cut the private parts of 3 males who pissed at that place. In a hazy apartment lit by weak daylight, Kuro walks in on Mr. Ono lounging in a bra that doesn't belong to him, obviously because he doesn't need a bra as a man. Kuro demands an explanation. They both sit to have a drink. Mr. Ono launches into a story that, jobless and sweating on a windless night 2 weeks ago, he saw a bra suspended mid-air. It drifted like an omen. The bra was hanging with a drone. Without thinking, he leapt for it, but as his fingers closed around it, he felt a presence below. He peered down and saw a boy with chalk-white skin, unblinking eyes, and a frozen expression staring up from between the apartment blocks. The horror in Ono's voice deepened. For a moment, he thought he saw a ghost. Kuro says that the boy must have been a perverted middle schooler who had been piloting it, often spying on neighbors. These days, he's been spying on Kawado. Kuro insists the bra should have been returned. Ono admits she intended to, but fear, nausea, and shame overwhelmed him. The night of the incident, he ran to his room and vomited onto the bra in panic. The next day, he washed it. Yet the idea of returning it brought back the shame. It never left his room again. The next morning, Kawado wakes up and a news report flickers on in the background. Another man has been assaulted in the same way, his private part cut. Something is preying on the neighborhood. Elsewhere, the foreigner stands under a street lamp rehearsing his resolve. He saw his target in front of him taking a piss. He visualizes tied tofu and sausages. He imagines anatomy replaced by food and it helps, at least until he looks down and realizes that the body part does resemble Odin. The illusion collapses and he realizes it's a sausage. The target is not a random dude but Samasa, an experienced ninja who acts as Mr. Breastmilk during the day. The fight begins. The foreigner tries to attack him but realizes his target is wearing a special bulletproof shirt. The pause is fatal as he realizes his target is the ninja he was expecting to meet. The same day, 8 hours prior, Kuro tried on Kawado's bra just out of curiosity. Suddenly, Kato, the career ninja, walks into his room. The air between them is stale and silent. Kato comments dryly on the hoodie he gave to Kuro previously. Kuro tells him that it's dust-proof, bulletproof, and high-end. But Kato isn't here for tech specs. He's here to act. He asks Kuro for an update on his mission. He tells him the job is simple, and he has 3 days to finish it, catching the guy who is mutilating victims. Kuro, as usual, responds with casual disinterest. He explains he's been in self-imposed seclusion, preparing for his school infiltration mission. Kato eyes him with suspicion. He asks if Kuro has been leaking anything during his monologues. Kuro replies that he's just pretending to be someone distant and hard to talk to. He reminds the Marashitan gear, the hoodie only camouflages the upper body. Legs stay exposed. A calculated leak through police channels has seeded that intel. If the attacker reacted to the hoodie, it might confirm their suspicions. Kato comes back in the delivery car and discusses Marashitan 4.0 technology with Ozu. This gear is only provided to the frontline ninjas. Elsewhere, one child claims she's found the foreigner and hopes to get a drone in return. He skips over, eyes shining, and asks if the man is a ninja. The little girl replies softly that she isn't. She's just playing hide and seek. The foreigner smiles faintly and admits defeat. His voice trembles as he asks the child's age. He speaks of his daughter, who was recently born. He talks about the future he will never see and how failure in this mission means no return. His superiors do not tolerate incompetence. He has no allies. The child doesn't understand anything he is saying. She offers him a strange bottle, calling it Matsuko's water, a drink before dying. But in actuality, it's tap water. The foreigner sips and feels calm. The girl laughs and exclaims that the man came back to life. In the same park, Kato appears without announcement to meet Samasa, or should we say Mr. Breastmilk. Kato greets him with veiled nostalgia. They recall missions, entrapments, and near-deaths. Sasama speaks in riddles, opening doors, finding no exits, fighting side by side in places where no map existed. He brings up an old mission where they were encircled for kilometers with no way out. He only trusted a handful of comrades then, and Kato was one of them. Sasama then pivots. He questions why, decades after the war, the Japanese Prime Minister still lacks authority over the organization. He states it plainly: 29,000 police officers, 23,000 military personnel, and 200,000 ninja. Of those, over 90% remain in country. Why is that? Why does no civilian power regulate them? Then he answers his own question. It's all tied to one concept: under ninja. The unseen and the ungoverned. Outside, silence stirs in the delivery car. The hunt has only just begun. On the narrow bridge, Kuro, wearing his special hoodie, takes down the opponent girl quite ruthlessly. An eye gouge and an arm break. Hachiya leaves to take the girl to the nursing room. One night before, a boy stood frozen somewhere in the half-silence of a rundown apartment complex. Before him, hanging on the wall, as if waiting to be claimed, was a bra he had failed to steal. For a long moment he simply stared, and yet in the haze of adolescent confusion, other fantasies floated through his mind. What if the owner of that bra was waiting just beyond the window? Kuro, who had set the trap, came out and hit him with one of his gadgets. He collapsed. The boy lay unconscious on the floor of Onso's apartment. The question of whose room this was and why he was in it loomed over everything. Onso sat beside him with arms crossed, sighing with irritation. Kuro had dragged him in, apparently, after finding him passed out in front of his building. The boy tried to protest but failed to form a coherent defense. He claimed the right to remain silent and demanded legal counsel. The boy was conscious enough to quote yesterday's classroom lesson. Kuro sarcastically remarked about his condition. He was probably concussed and possibly anemic. He forced a plate of pickled eggplant into his hands, citing old wisdom that it helped with low blood pressure. The boy said he hated eggplant. Just then, Kawado returned with a beer in hand. Her presence quickly made the situation more casual. Kuro told her the story with a twist, claiming the boy had kindly returned her bra. Kawado laughed and offered thanks. The boy was about to leave when Kuro asked about his age and school. He was identified as a student of Kodan High School, though he confessed to not having attended recently. Kuro seized the opportunity. He needed help tracking someone, specifically a foreigner with blonde hair, glasses, and a blue hoodie. He bribed the boy, saying that if he could find this person, he might just earn himself some private photos of Kawada. The offer seems tempting. The boy returned to his apartment. A little girl was sitting there. She called him the drone guy and asked if she could borrow his drone. He told her to find a foreigner with a blue hoodie, and in return, she would get access to the drone. Scene shifts to the next morning. A group of children gathered around a skateboard discovered in a trash heap. They argued ownership and trades. Kuro, who was looking at them from behind, proposed a shocking offer: a bra in exchange for the board. The kids agreed after Kuro manipulated them with his speech about adulthood. The bra, once forbidden, had become a bargaining chip in a schoolyard economy. The scene shifts to the time when the little girl finds the foreigner. This little girl's name is Yuna, and she lives with her stepfather. She ushered him into the shadows of her home. It's better to call it a bathhouse. It wasn't a proper bedroom. She wasn't allowed in the real apartment as she wasn't real family. Upon asking, she told him that she had grown used to sleeping on cold tiles and enduring discomfort with practiced indifference. Yuna offered a cucumber to the foreigner. The guest thanked her quietly. Scene shifts to the rooftop of Kuro's apartment. He had been practicing his ninja skills with a skateboard. Kawado wished to join him and prepared drinks. They both sat on the roof. When she asked if he had ever left the apartment since moving in, he answered honestly that he hadn't. He had become a shut-in. An elderly landlady had once provided meals. But when she became bedridden, he resorted to foraging, surviving on river ice, wheeled grass, and bits of Ono's rice. Kawado asked how he managed to stay there without being noticed. He confessed he had met Ono while mugging near the train station. He had stepped in, played the part of a hero, and gradually wormed his way into his home. When asked about school, Kuro admitted he had no motivation. Studying made him sleepy. Working made him want to die. Kawado nodded as she understood. Her parents had been killed in the infamous incident that happened in February 2010. Everything changed after that. The mood shifted again when Kawado stood to leave. As she moved down the stairs, something slipped beneath her feet. Kuro rushed to her and became her shield. They fell hard, but Kuro's hoodie saved them both. He laughed it off, joking about airbags built into his body. The scene shifts back to when Kuro and the weird makeup girl were combating. The other two girls from the opponent group saw Hachiya dragging their leader somewhere. Meanwhile, Suzuki attacked those girls from behind with her special gear. She tells them to surrender, or she will aim at their faces next, leaving a nasty scar. Suzuki is an educated ninja who graduated from Ninja Technical School's Kunoichi program. She was the first ninja to encounter the foreigner. This is the story of the day Suzuki, Hibi, and Kuro encountered the foreigner. Juna knocks at her neighbor's door, the pervert boy. She asks him to give her his drone. The boy is shocked to see that she has already found the foreigner in a blue hoodie standing in front of him. Yoshida-sensei hunched over his manuscript inside a cramped apartment. He's having a meeting with a woman from a publishing company. A noise from the outside interrupted their meeting. She praises the ninja novel Yoshida submitted. The publisher claimed it moved her deeply, especially the part where the ninja unit was wiped out. Yoshida, visibly proud, straightened with a modest smile. The smile vanished when the publisher pointed out all the chapters to remove. Pages were called redundant. A poem about a shinobi's longing was deemed unnecessary. A whole subplot was cut with a wave of the hand. Then the woman's phone rang. She bowed quickly, said it was an urgent call from her superiors, and left as fast as she came. Yoshida remained seated, hunched again, staring at his gutted manuscript. Hibi is roaming around with a bald guy, his superior. He stops by a shop to get cigarettes, but only antique ones are available. The bald guy informs Hibi that it's time for his first mission at Murayama Flats. Suzuki was leaving for her salon appointment, but was informed the foreigner was on the second floor of her apartment. She quickly brought out her ninja moves to attack him. He managed to dodge. The foreigner was controlling the drone of the pervert boy, which complicated things for Suzuki. She used her special clothes and became invisible to attack him, but he shot her with electrocution conditioning. The foreigner observed that Suzuki was not begging for mercy when he pointed the gun at her. They were interrupted by Hibi. He arrived, his face completely hidden in a hoodie. He announced the arrival of a true challenger, a shinobi of rank. The real battle had only just begun. A man sitting in the basement is on call with the armed troops. Among the chaos, a female ninja emerged with a sharp sword in her hands. A hand moved instinctively, trying to shield the head, but the weapon was faster. She copped half the man's head. She was wearing a special outfit that made her invisible when the troops entered the room. They knew only a ninja could execute such precision. A moment of eerie silence followed the attack. Kato called the female ninja. Apologies fell from his lips for interrupting her mid-mission. He inquired about the ongoing mission. She told him that it had ended. He asked what version of Marishitten was currently in her use. The answer came from a subordinate, version 3.5. Kato noted aloud that Kuro must have the latest version of Marishitten 4.0. That would mean that the battlefield was the real front line. The scene shifts to the apartments. Hibi's arrival breaks the silence, demanding applause for his entrance. No one claps. Meanwhile, Suzuki assessed the current state of combat. She analysed that even if shot in a vulnerable area, her body was unlikely to suffer fatal damage. But she hid herself, considering regrouping as a better option. With formations reset, the field became a one-on-one encounter between Hibby and the foreigner. The foreigner wondered about one thing: what untapped potential truly lay within a ninja? Doubt surfaced as Suzuki analysed the situation. Multiple operatives were deployed for a single mission. Were the upper ranks turning them against each other? She realised that such speculation would lead her nowhere. She thought it better to be challenged by comrades than restrained by old war dogs. Now, Suzuki had the drone's control. She stepped into the fight using the drone. Hibby's tone was light, almost mocking. The foreigner questioned the source of the drone, guessing if it was the same woman controlling it. Confusion about allegiance simmered. He wondered if they were allies or not. Hibby scoffed, saying whether they were allies didn't matter. 2 against 1 made little difference. He would destroy the drone either way. The boy shouted desperately for him not to destroy his drone. As the scene changes, Ozu approaches Taira, casually mentioning a local ordinance against public smoking in Nerima Ward. They both talk about focusing on their work. Suddenly, Sasma made an announced entry. He said to turn one's back on an enemy on the battlefield was suicide. Ozu acknowledged him respectfully. Sasama responded with strange words. He asked the boys if they wanted to drink breast milk. One ninja confronted Sasama directly, questioning whether he stood as an enemy now. Sasama reminded them of an old teaching that to die and to know meant the same thing in their world. Taira lamented their ordinariness. Without knowledge, they couldn't survive. Kuro headed toward the apartment building, hiding behind a moving car. The car stopped in front of the apartment. A man emerged, furious, demanding why his daughter was outside. Apologies flew from Yuna's lips, timid and quick. The man struck her repeatedly, driven by fear and frustration. He tortured her verbally, making her panic. The foreigner wondered whether this man was truly her father. Kuro stopped Hibby, who planned to get rid of the girl's father. The foreigner could not handle the misbehavior of the little girl. He kicked her father's face. When he was about to shoot him, he heard Yuna calling for her father. Suzuki stops him from harming a civilian with the help of a drone. The foreigner leaves in the car. While driving, he felt eyes on him from the passenger seat. It was Kuro who was hiding in his hoodie. Kuro punched his face. The car stops in front of Sasama and Taira. The foreigner falls out of the car unconscious. The question arose: who defeated the enemy? Had someone escaped? Kuro leaves the scene without exposing himself as the one who got the job done. Back to the present on the bridge, Kuro had taken down the leader of the opponent group, while Suzuki had made the other 2 girls surrender. A sniper's warning. The enemy was subdued. The battle quieted. But Hibby stood alone, mumbling in disappointment. He had no role to play. His part had been missed. A boy with a stuffed animal, Hachiya, carried away the weird makeup girl to the nursing room. He told her that the people he is with are dangerous. He was struggling to manage the situation. The girl looked confused. Why had he saved her, even though she is his enemy? The boy softened. He admitted he'd always noticed her strange makeup and solitude. She claimed she needed no friends. He disagreed. He called it out as Kumatori makeup and said it symbolized something deeper. She denied it, but he pushed. Her makeup was red, the color of the protagonist. The others wore simple styles, but hers meant something. Without realizing it, she wanted to be seen. He apologized for analyzing her so bluntly. He just wanted to understand. Her mind warned her not to be fooled, assuming he only tried to draw her in. Emotions wavered. She smiled faintly for the first time after he complimented her straight hair. Hachiya also opened up, said he couldn't talk to people without his stuffed animal, said he was like her, hiding inside a shell. Their world was one of indoctrination, kidnapping, and absolute obedience. His stuffed animal was the only thing he'd kept from before. He would let go of his stuffed companion if she removed her makeup. An offer of equality. In the delivery car, Kato and Ozu discussed Hachiya, that he hadn't participated in the earlier fight. He wasn't just any subordinate, he couldn't be lumped in with the rest. A distinction had to be made. They shifted focus to discussing the mutilation of a foreigner. Kato asked Ozu what had become of him, because he hadn't been present during the confrontation. Scene shifts back to the day when the foreigner was caught. Taira walks him towards a place, his face hidden with a cloth. He questions him about the 3 who fought, who had been strongest. The foreigner says it is hard to tell. Each had different conditions, but the one who vanished at the end, completely suppressing his bloodlust in the car, stands out. He's talking about Kuro. Taira made him sit in front of Sasama. Sasama said it was so hot. Ozu helped him remove the costume. Underneath the costume of Sasama, a young woman was hiding. She said the ninja lab had been on her ass about testing a new Marishitan beta. The woman, who seemed like the leader of the ninjas, talked with her subordinates. They discussed internal limits. Full-spec Marashitan wasn't used domestically. They had leverage because of a trust-based agreement with the police that included limiting gear performance. Then attention turned to the Ministry of Defense. While officially collaborative, they were cautious. The real problem was deeper, a remnant of the old army. Housed within the Ministry of Health, an operation nicknamed AKU. This was the dual structure of power that the enemy sought to destabilize. The foreigner asked her why she shared all the information with an outsider. She replied because he was now one of them, a ninja. The Foreign Affairs was already watching. He was selected. To be a ninja meant leaving everything behind. That he accepted. He had succeeded. He had infiltrated. The foreigner was told to contact his companion. He talked to him on the call. During the call, Shimanda from the Foreign Department killed his companion. He took over the phone and informed the foreigner that his daughter is safe. Shimada warned him that the time was short and told him to join the mission or lose his daughter. During an unusually long break, Sato stood alone, stewing in discomfort. She just wanted to talk to someone. She considered mentioning the rumor about the upperclassman with no upper body, but worried that might brand her as some occult-loving outcast. Suddenly, a girl asked what she was doing. Noguchi replied she was looking outside, but her answer didn't make sense. Another student appeared, Kuro. The other girl called him by name, recognizing him. Soto asked if she knew Kuro personally. She gave a vague answer. Maybe they were acquaintances. The scene shifts back to the day she met Kuro for the first time. Kuro is walking alone in the school building. He doesn't want to go to school. He turns to leave, but the way was blocked. Noguchi asked if it wasn't hot wearing a hoodie under a blazer. He admitted it was, so why not take it off? He refused, and his attitude irritated her. A teacher shouted. He called out to Noguchi, then his eyes landed on Kuro. The teacher remarked that it was an unusual name. Kuro said it wasn't. It ranked in the top 10 every year. The teacher wasn't convinced. He warned Kuro not to lie. The conversation devolved into confusion. Finally, the teacher told him that if he did transfer, he needed to shave. Kuro replied that he wanted to, but his mother worked night shifts. Her razor was a full-body grooming device, and she wouldn't let him use it. The teacher stuttered. Noguchi chimed in, asking what his mother did. She wanted the same job. The teacher turned to Noguchi. If she didn't take this seriously, she could repeat a year. He warned her. Noguchi didn't care. What could a 17 or 18-year-old know about life? The teacher then told Kuro to take a seat. Noguchi called him gross. Kuro said he didn't mind him. He sat in the back. The teacher started class. He told Noguchi she could begin with English, math, or Japanese. Once done, she should call him over. Kuro got flashback of a past scene when Hachiya came to meet him. He introduced himself with flair. He offered greetings and handed out drinks. Ono told him not to wear shoes indoors. Kuro asked why he was there. He responded rudely again, his voice shifting into gibberish. Then he muttered about the foreigner. He had intended to finish him off after the apartment fight, but someone else took the credit. He felt ashamed. He called it a disgrace. Hachiya turned to Kuro. He said he'd be waiting at Kodan High School and told him to look at the floor during the exam. Later, Noguchi was answering test questions. She thought about the middle-class revolt and the uprising in Nakasendai, then screamed. A bug was crawling. Noguchi yelled that it was disgusting. The teacher guessed it was a row of bug eggs. Kuro identified it. It was known in Japan as a rare bug with poisonous eggs. They were sometimes called rice grain lookalikes. They always appeared in pairs. When they floated, the male and female could mate instantly and reproduce. Noguchi shouted again. This was unbearable. The teacher questioned if such bugs truly existed. Kuro answered calmly. The world was large. The classroom wasn't everything. These bugs might exist or not, but they were dangerous. The teacher called out to bring the broom, which Noguchi acknowledged. Then Kuro dropped an eraser. A scream followed, and Noguchi yelled that someone had touched her. The teacher told her to calm down. Meanwhile, Kuro tried to save what he called bugs, which were helping him cheat on the exam. The teacher shouted. The floor was wet. Kuro had an accident. He peed his pants intentionally. Noguchi ran off to get a mop. Kuro confessed. He had been extremely nervous since yesterday. He drank too much deep-sea osmotic water. The teacher was surprised. He hadn't seemed nervous. Noguchi told the teacher to take Kuro to the restroom. He addressed the teacher. He wasn't mentally prepared for English and math, but he asked to be evaluated on Japanese. The teacher agreed. He asked if that was approval and declared it a verbal agreement. That's how he escaped the test. Noguchi said he was scary and weird. The teacher shouted from the hallway that he looked forward to seeing him at school. Kuro suddenly asked Noguchi if she wanted to stop by his house. They hadn't spoken much before. She greeted his mother. Noguchi asked if they lived together. Kawado looked confused. Noguchi noticed only one futon, Kawado said Kuro lived upstairs. Kawado asked what the class would be like. She wanted all the details: group structure, hierarchy, bullying, romances, theft, smoking, drinking, fighting, scandals, rumors, everything. Noguchi said it was creepy. She described 4 girl groups. She used to be in the top one but was now in between. Kuro started to laugh. Noguchi asked if she'd said anything funny. The TV didn't turn on. Then Noguchi talked about the school's past. It was once a military facility. Behind the forest there was a cave. Kawado played her favorite show on TV. It was called Me and the Old Dudes. It was a program where people who couldn't be arrested were shown. They were executed live. The next day, Kato comes to take Kuro. He drops him off at the apartment of the pervert boy. He asks if Kuro will protect him. Kuro says he will for 500 yen. Kuro says it is a job. Then, from the first floor apartment, Kuro picked Noguchi up. She was shocked that the 3 of them were going to school together. She called him and Aita creepy. Aita told her that Kuro had promised to protect him. They all walked together. Kuro found a listening device on him and realized he had to be careful. A listening device could be from a friend or a foe. They saw the director of the school from a distance. He was acting strange. At school, the teacher introduced the new student, Kumogakura Kuro. He was barefoot. Aita was standing with him, but he wasn't a transfer. The teacher told them to sit in their seats. Some students tried to bully Aita, but Kuro bullied them instead. Later, Kuro went to the school's rooftop to meet his group mates. Hibi, Suzuki, and Hachiya were present there. On the day of their meeting, they encountered the opponent group and fought them. Meanwhile, Aita is smitten with a girl named Yamada. They have been in the same class for 2 years, but this is the first time she has talked to him. Azuma, a guy from the same class, approached Aita and asked about online insults. He was bullying Aita with another guy, and they were getting worse. Kuro stepped in. Tension filled the air, thick with suspicion and unspoken threats. Nearby, Aita called out to Kuro, questioning if he had arrived to save him. Kuro snapped the neck of Azuma while Noheji stared at him in disbelief. There was a pause, confusion spreading as others tried to grasp what was happening. But the silence was shattered as Noheji tried to attack Aita with a tactical baton and felt a deep pain in his left hand. Kuro controlled both arms of Aita and told Aita to relax. He punched Noheji back with his right and knocked him down. Kuro's voice was calm as he left. He asked where the director's room was. Aita replied the director usually hung around the boiler room. Inside that room, a sharp voice awaited him. The air changed as Kuro stepped in. The director, already seated, regarded him with a chilling smirk. He acknowledged the ninja's famed technique, invisibility, but made it clear it wouldn't work here. He wasn't expecting him to come to enemy territory directly. Kuro said he could come back some other time. The director wasted no time. He complimented Kuro's reflexes, but said his right arm might have been blown off if Kuro had worn an older model. Then the director grew serious. Kuro warned him. His movements had been tracked. The next attack would be lethal. An experimental weapon had locked onto him. It would vaporize his limb. Kuro mocked him for being targeted by the most dangerous ninja weapon. A shift occurred to the past timeline to Kawado apartment. Intestines sprawled across the screen. Noguchi shrugged, admitting they were starting to get used to it. The blood no longer shocked them. The scene shifted to Van, where Kato and Kuro were talking. Kuro told Kuto that he and his buddies were watching a controversial broadcast from the Ninja Broadcasting Association. Technically, ordinary civilians weren't supposed to access it. The feed was scrambled, only visible to a few. Kuro asked if it was part of a rehabilitation effort for the victims of the ninja disaster. Kato nodded. The broadcasts kept the people sedate and compliant. As shinobi, it's their job to ensure that public resentment doesn't fall on them. Then, without ceremony, the conversation turned. The mission to infiltrate Kodan High School had escalated, and the upper command had authorized additional weapons. Kuro was given the chance to choose. A few items were displayed. One was a new drone-guided shuriken, a folding handgun, cardboard boxes, and an AI-powered self-operating bike called Teo. Kato nudged it awake. The bike stirred and spoke in a snarky male voice. Kuro was stunned. Worse, it informed Kuro that only women could ride it. Despite protests, Kuro picked it up. Kuro asked Kato for any other weapon available in the room that Kato could give him. Scene shifted back to present time. The director was talking to Kuro, telling him that they authorized a lowly genin to use escape sarcastically and wasted no time and tried to attack him. Then a sudden beam from the thin air like a light cut the hellish cauldron in 2 pieces and left the director in disbelief. That beam came straight out of an escape unit 0 from space. Kuro left the room and went outside, murmuring that the hoodie has a GPS and a mic installed in it too. Suddenly, he noticed a familiar van, one that Kato had, and it was parked outside the school, and Kato was staring at Kuro. Elsewhere, a feline observer prowled the shadows. It referred to itself as a cat, but with disturbing self-awareness. Kawado named it Shinobu. It wasn't just speaking Japanese, it was understanding it. Kawado lay asleep. Shinobu leapt onto her, meowing to wake her up. He started scratching her, which made her tickle so bad that she started laughing and woke up. She fed him the cat food. He froze as the TV in the room flickered. The same brutal program was played. A sense of déjà vu flooded him. That was where it had happened. He had been killed there. A ninja took his life, and now, somehow, he had returned in a cat body. The scene shifted to the past. A doctor was dragging and talking to someone. The doctor appeared to be talking to Shinobu, who was in his human form. The doctor told him that it was pretty impressive that he survived against their rainbow hound until the very end. He added that out of respect for his tenacity, they kept a portion of his brain intact. There is a high chance he will survive the transplant. Shinobu remembers now what happened to him in the past, as his brain is transplanted into a cat's body. The scene shifted and Kuro walked back into the apartment building. Shinobu looked up as Kuro passed. Something about Kuro triggered a primal reaction. Shinobu remembered that Kuro was the guy who killed him. The instincts of its new body reacted before memory could follow. Kato is sitting in the park, trying not to get any attention from his surroundings while talking to Onikobe. She appears to be in front of him in stealth and invisibility. Kato tells her new battlefield is right here. Scene shifted to school where Eita felt relieved that it was the first day since the bullying was dealt with, and now it felt like a new world to him. Right in the moment, Azuma appeared and hit him on the head and asked if he could come outside. He wants to have a word with him. Azuma kneels and asks him to bring Kuro around one more time. Eita was shocked at how he could know that Kuro had hit him. Azuma said he knows Kuro is a ninja. Out of nowhere, Kuro appeared from behind. After seeing Kuro, Azuma bows down. Azuma begs for his help in beating some students from another school. Scene shifts to the apartment. Kato hands over a refrigerated delivery. Kuro wasn't home, so Ono volunteered to hold it. Onikobe lingered in the Kuro apartment. Kato casually started a conversation with Ono. Onikobe reported on Kuro's living space. Beneath the tatami mat, a full bunker shelter had been found. It was rated for bunker buster survival. The whole apartment had been fortified. This was no coincidence, Onikobe observed with suspicion. Even civilians would lower their guard if they stayed in that place too long. Kato said Kuro chose this place on purpose, as the people looked too civilian. It would look unnatural to think something suspicious here. Hibi asked if the school was hit by lasers yesterday, and Kuro said it was him. He called for fire support from Escape, but Hibi didn't believe him and asked if he was joking. He further said he could dodge lightning, but not that. Hibi turned his attention towards the Kuro and said that if they had let him flee, it meant this mission was more dangerous than they thought. He replied that he had no idea, and the command would not give a second thought to blowing the whole school away. The conversation shifted again. Kuro remembered Yamada, the girl who had asked Eita to carry a box the day before. Yamada was beautiful but cold and unreachable, and she had an intimidating reputation. She was gorgeous but distant. The scene shifted and Eita was holding a can. They had asked him to put his hair in a pompadour since they were going to Yankee High School. Later, Eita's mother's friend appeared, speaking in her usual eccentric tone. She commented on his use of pomade, asked if he had started dating. Eita barely responded. He had no idea who the woman was. Every time he asked his mother, she claimed not to know her. As Eita left the store, an invisible armored ninja went in. The woman stood still, her lips curling into something between a smirk and a warning. Her opponent, armed with a drone-guided shuriken weapon, desperately aimed it. She welcomed the fight. Behind her, the air tensed. Though there seemed to be multiple presences, only one could truly be felt. The others were illusions. Voices piped from hidden speakers embedded inside high-grade shuriken. In a split second, the invisible ninja gave a deep cut on her neck. The attacker activated his gear, ejecting blood and fluid from the surface before tightening around his frame. His adversary marveled at the effectiveness, questioning how one as disgraced and an outcast. She died there while the invisible ninja left, saying one target down. Scene shifted and Eita is going home. But on the other side, Suzuki is going to Yoshida's apartment unannounced. Scene shifted to a past timeline where a young man, which is the same person who attacked the lady in the store, running from someone while a shuriken hit his left calf and made him fell on the ground. His adversary marveled at the effectiveness, questioning how one as disgraced and outcast as he had managed to survive. He had no backing, no path out of the country, no clan to call his own, but he had a rumor, a whispered possibility that a group known only as New Concept UN would accept him or at least give him a battlefield. He had no desire for safety. He had no desire for survival without purpose. All he wanted was a place to fight. A battalion where he could burn out his soul, weapon in hand, until nothing remained. The other figure considered this, then agreed. He would be given his war. A knock at the door shattered the stillness. Suzuki was entering as if she owned the place. She was not supposed to be there, not like this, not unannounced. He reminded her this was his home and had just stepped out of the bath. Her face turned red. She countered, saying she'd only come to collect the manuscript. She insisted she was still his editor, even if her title had changed. He stared, disarmed by her intensity. Aita and his sister talked about the store owner, and she left to visit her out of curiosity. A news alert broke the evening calm. An incident at the local convenience store had ended in blood. A shinobi had been killed. The report hit hard. Their instructor, long considered indestructible, had been the victim. Who could kill someone like her? One possibility emerged: the attacker with invisibility. The technology wasn't publicly confirmed, but the signs pointed to one group, the UN. Suzuki knew the danger was real. Juna appeared on the scene and ran into the danger. Suzuki warned Juna to run fast. Juna froze. The man who appeared next was not ordinary. The weapon in her hand gleamed with a poison, a human-made toxin that could kill in under 2 seconds. But if it landed even with the delay, Juna would be sliced open in the time it took to die. Suzuki tried to defend her. The man hesitated. Juna's unpredictability had thrown off his timing. He studied Suzuki's movements. The face in front of him didn't match, and the voice was different. Still, he was certain. He recognized the scent. The scene shifts to a past timeline where Saruta and Suzuki are talking. She was the kunoichi who had infiltrated Kodan High School. Suzuki steps forward. Saruta is awkward and stumbling. He confesses or tries to. His emotions tangle in his throat. He is in love. None had suspected the trap. None had realized they were marks. Her smile still haunted him. He wanted to die before his memory faded again. The scene shifted back to the store. A surveillance recording played on a small monitor. A magazine and a plastic bottle had dropped to the floor without any visible cause. The attacker had struck without ever showing a trace. A perfect kill. Was this a product of human ingenuity? The answer was a reluctant no. Kato remained quiet as he processed the implications, but others weren't ready to let it go. Onikabe mentioned that it's dangerous to operate individually. Kato responded with indignation. He was not just any officer. He was a hardened veteran whose instincts had saved him more than once. Onikabe offered to provide backup, noting that the sensor system embedded in the latest Marishitan had already picked up multiple enemy signatures nearby. Kato put Onikabe on standby. The scene shifted to a field where Kato and Ozu walked and talked. Ozu was talking about a past incident about dealing with drug dealers when things went south, and all died except the 3. They both got cooked badly, protecting Chief Sasama. Scene shifted again and they met Sasama while Taira had his blade at Kato's neck. The scene took another turn, where Onikabe was on standby. They got an intruder, not anyone else but Suzuki. She was prepared for a fight. They fought, but Suzuki was there for intel, not for a fight. So she stopped and asked her about last night's attack. They started thinking about who could be behind the attack and the confessions they got from the class, and decided to kill them together. The scene shifted back to Sasama. One of the 7 chief nin officers was Tara. They asked him who he worked for or whether he was operating independently. Then, they asked him to prove his loyalty through a ritual. Suzuki and Onikabe were both surrounded by rainbow hounds, as were Kato and Ozu. They had to make a decision, and they had to act on it without wasting a single second. Kato stood stiffly beneath the piercing gazes of those assembled. He was to crawl beneath the symbolic legs of the rainbow hound as a gesture of undoubted loyalty to the shinobi order. The silence that followed was not merely hesitation. It was a war between pride and allegiance. Kato remained motionless for a moment too long. Then, with the inevitability of a man boxed into a corner, he complied. As he crouched low and passed beneath the looming metallic form, Sasama mocked him, asking how the view looked from below the hound. Kato didn't respond. But outside, far from rituals and authority, the atmosphere was shifting. The pressure had lifted. Rainbow hounds had vanished without a trace. At home, Noguchi stared at the ceiling in blank despair, as if someone were already staring at her invisibly. The scene shifted. Suddenly, a scream. Noguchi shouted, panicked that Kuro was watching. She insisted that a disembodied eye had floated above the pet. Her mother calmly dismissed it as their cat. It was Kuro. In the traditional sense, he wasn't an intruder, but his presence in her room, uninvited and unapologetic, was intrusive. She shouted, demanding to know what he was doing inside her house. He admitted he had entered through the window. If anyone found out, she reminded him, he could be expelled. Kuro didn't blink. He said it calmly. It wouldn't matter since the school wouldn't be around for much longer. She stared, confused, and asked what he meant. He didn't explain. and walked away. She stood in the middle of her room, stunned, shouting after him, demanding clarity, and trying to understand what kind of risk he was taking if he planned to do nothing. The scene shifted to Yoshida's house, where he sighed over a manuscript that had once again been returned and rejected. He was starting to believe that his editor, Suzuki, hated him. 2 decades of writing and not a single bestseller to his name. Once a hopeful novelist, he had long since pivoted into speculative historical fiction. Tonight, he gave up early. He prepared for sleep with an odd ritual, unlocking the door and windows, slipping on an eye mask, and lying flat on the floor. He forged this habit years ago after a singular experience that convinced him, without question, that ninjas were real. One night, a shinobi appeared by his bedside without sound or breath. Since then, Yoshida has slept vulnerable and is waiting for a return. That return came sooner than expected. A ninja with a blade around the neck. The breathing was inhuman, deep, steady, like a flute submerged underwater. He already knew this was no thief. No prank. It was them. The ninja. He obeyed instantly, clamping his eyes shut. The voice didn't waver. It recited a memory on December 18, 1996. A terrorist siege in the Japanese embassy in Pelon. 100 hostages. 15 armed assailants. Peaceful diplomacy had failed and a military raid had ended the standoff with heavy casualties. But that was only half the truth. The voice revealed that 7 ninjas had infiltrated the embassy through an underground corridor an hour before the official raid. Their goal was clear: neutralize the threat without bloodshed. They succeeded. But the government never intended a peaceful resolution. Among the hostages was a political target. The mission, unknown to the public, was an assassination. The ninja team was caught in the crossfire. 7 against 200, a massacre, 5 died. 2 survived. The truth was buried. The ninja exhaled. The blade near Yoshida's throat vanished. He hadn't told this story for sympathy. He told it because he needed someone to remember. And a writer, even an ignored one, could do that. Years ago, Yoshida published the story in novel form, disguised as fiction. The book did modestly well. Readers assumed it was a joke, a silly conspiracy. But maybe that had been the point. Maybe the ninjas wanted the truth hidden in plain sight. 3 people were standing in the Yoshida room and 2 others were with Sasama. Scene changed. Yamada was climbing walls naked in the room and practicing, and afterwards went to the shower. The scene shifts to Kawado's apartment, where Shinobu is trying to wake her up by jumping on her. After a failed attempt, Shinobu, in his cat body, goes to Kuro's apartment, thinking about questions. Shinobu thinks Sarita will be avenging him by killing Kuro, but Kuro woke up and replied, like he could read his mind and thoughts, that he won't be killing me. On the way to school, Kuro called Hibi and told him the school is going to be hit today, and they plan to attack the real target. Suddenly, a voice rang out from nearby. Someone had overheard. A boy from the feared gang-affiliated school stepped forward. He had caught the tail end of the conversation and accused them of mocking his school. Eito is trying to help, but making it worse. The boy turned toward Yamada, eyes gleaming with mischief. He asked if Eito was Yamada's boyfriend. Yamada, caught off guard, blinked, then smiled faintly. She hesitated only a breath before nodding and accepting the title. They asked a compensation in return to leave Eito. It was showing the underwear. Yet Yamada did not falter. With surprising calm, she agreed. Her voice was still, but the humor in it had disappeared. She offered them the chance to look, and as they hesitated, she took the chance and beat the hell out of those 2 thugs. After that, Yamada announced what was already becoming common knowledge, that a group of 4 students were preparing to invade the rival high school. It wasn't a rumor anymore. Scene shifted and Noguchi was in the school, even though Kuro told her not to come to school. A student, face bruised and nose likely broken, approached Hibi. He winced slightly before revealing what had happened. An unexpected attack by a tall girl with a slicked-back hairstyle who had struck without hesitation. He didn't know the girl's name, but he'd heard something else. They were planning a retaliatory raid. Scene shifted inside a separate, quieter space. Kuro asked if the store owner had brought what he needed. Kuro examined the item, a device disguised as a ring. Thanks to its embedded GPS, the weapon would always find its way back to him. The threshold of enemy territory was never meant to feel like a casual stroll. The walls of the school were covered with impolite insults. Eita stood frozen at the gates. Yamada instructed him to give his hand. She carried him on her back and ran towards the playground. She was putting on an act. Eita's inner voice tried to regain control. This was a crisis, yes, but also an opportunity. For instance, he was in close physical contact with Yamada, the most beautiful girl in school. A man with a muscular build, a sports instructor, approached them. He asked them why they were making a noise. Yamada used Eita's body as her weapon. Far beneath the city's surface, the underground ninja lab buzzed with unwanted activity. This was no place for civilians. The monitoring girl was working overnight. She discussed their own Marishaitan and the enemy's new suit. The enemy's new suit was outperforming expectations by several degrees. If their current model was considered state-of-the-art domestically, the opposing forces' variant had already rendered it obsolete. Their adversary's newest suit boasted near total resistance, shrugging off direct impacts from high-density ninja steel blades. Even cloaking functionality was fully active mid-combat. She informed Tyra that she was about to send all related data to Kato, but she saw risks in it. Despite data loss or interference concerns, Tyra guided her to send it to Kato. She talked to herself, wishing Kato a long life and hoping Onikobe dies. In the morning calm of Kodan High School, Hachiya answered a call from Ozu. Ozu informed him that an alert had been triggered, and their school would soon be an active war zone. Hachiya wasn't supposed to be on the front lines. Technically, his status exempted him. He carried a legacy, the grandson of Atara, one of the 7 NIN leaders. He reassured his mentor that he would survive. In the hallway, Suzuki called the monitoring girl in the ninja lab. Suzuki told her that her messages weren't making sense. She told Suzuki that there was no flaw in the enemy's technology. It had no weakness. The girl asked Suzuki to put Onikobe on call. Suzuki gave a hate speech to Onikobe, saying that she wished the school would become her tomb. Kato contacted Onikobe and explained that their mission was to kill the target. They did not need to catch him alive. He told her that he would be joining them on the mission shortly. Azuma, the boy who tried to bully Eita, was walking back home. While crossing the road, the attacker sliced Azuma's head and found comfort in it. He looked forward to slicing around 100 heads. Scene shifts. The school director is watering plants. Noguchi approaches him. She asks for confirmation about the caves in the woods behind the school. The director reveals that the caves do exist. The entrance to the caves is on the school grounds. The director guides her to escape through the caves when things get life-threatening. He tells her to survive and tell people about the disaster that is about to happen in the school. Suzuki got a message from the ninja office girl. She relayed the latest reconnaissance data from Tengen Recon satellite. The attacker had already entered the school. A male student's body had been found, his head gone. She guided Suzuki to attach the enemy with the GPS marker. If successful, precision drone bombing would handle the rest, but failure had a contingency. Should the GPS not land on the target, the bomb would home in on the transmitters worn by the 2 student operatives. Onikobe also acknowledged the plan. The scene shifts to the hallway. 2 girls curse a fat guy. They are furious over a food mix-up. The attacker was watching this scene. He threw a head of a student in front of them. It caused panic. The attacker sliced the head off one girl, then he killed the other girl too. The fat guy ran, not out of fear, but to set chaos in motion. The attacker needed to disrupt patterns and throw the school into confusion. The scene shifts to the past. The attacker, Satora, is sitting with his friend Nekohira. Satora nervously talks about his ambition to ban using cats as weapons when he becomes a high-level jonin. Nekohira calls him delusional. A guy appeared, barking orders. He hit Satora with a rock. He ordered Satora and Nekohira to retrieve frozen ammunition rounds from the school store. They had 30 seconds. If they failed, the bully said they would be executed. Memories burned inside Satora's mind. Saruta remembered the eyes of that bully. Satora, the attacker, entered a classroom with the head of a teacher in his hand. He tried to scare the students, but the atmosphere was all wrong. Students sat rigidly, fake smiles plastered on their faces. The bell rang. Satora started killing students. He wasn't attacking teachers or classmates out of hatred. He was drawing blood to bait attention, to create bigger targets. Satora entered a restroom. A boy had taken refuge inside. He begged for mercy. Satora had spared him, not out of mercy, but with purpose. The boy would be the story now, the only survivor. Phone signals were cut. Desperation bled into every hallway. The fat guy entered the media room. He told the director that an invisible guy is killing students. Outside the classrooms, chaos erupted in waves. Then came the formal announcement. The vice principal addressed the school. A trespasser had entered the premises. All students were to evacuate to the courtyard immediately. But before the words settled, a second announcement contradicted the first. The school director announced that the intruder was not a threat and ordered the students to remain in their classrooms. Then, an announcement was made for the ninjas. They were informed that the attacker, Satora, had moved to another building. The director asked the ninjas to go corporate and catch the attacker. Suzuki asked the director why he had stayed in the school for over 20 years, even though he was a Nukanin. He answered that he wanted to support the students, and this became his life purpose. After discussing the matter with Kato, Outside a school building, a boy was watching inside, hiding himself. Kuro and Hibi, along with 2 other boys, approached him. Kuro asked his name. He replied it was Nohegi. Kuro wished to shake hands with him. Nohegi pointed towards Kawarada, the sports instructor, who someone knocked out. Suddenly, someone shouted from the rooftop, "Save me!" It was Eita calling for help. Yamada narrates her tragic story. At a time loosely defined as morning, children emerged from their cells and climbed. The staircase stretched upward like a punishment. When the climb ended, fists met faces. The rule was simple at that place: survive or die. Survival demanded evolution. Wooden swords replaced fists, blades replaced wood. As mornings turned to nights and nights back into mornings, the group grew smaller. One by one, the others failed to survive. Yamada remained until only 1 child was born. She became an entity shaped by attrition, crowned not by victory but by the absence of defeat. Scene shifts to the current day. Kawarada, the guidance counselor, lies on the ground, unconscious. He's a second-degree Dan in karate, Eita shouts from the rooftop. He tried to get the attention of the boys standing on the ground. Eita was tied up. He asked for help from Kuro. On the other hand, Kato reached the school in his delivery car. He dressed himself in a cardboard costume. A message buzzed through the speakers. Its meaning was clear. Unauthorized entry is officially sanctioned. All students in the hallway must return to their classrooms. Elsewhere in the building, Satura moaned with theatrical frustration. He killed a student who was looking out the window. Then, he cracked his neck and muttered something vile about wanting to clash with a female ninja. Scene shifts. Kuro, along with Hibi and Nohegi, enters a hallway. First-year students are crouched awkwardly, bickering among themselves with the kind of confusion reserved for those caught between orders and instinct. They stand with their eyes closed and hands on their ears, following the "see no evil, hear no evil" rule, acting like monkeys. On the staircase, Hibi broke the moment by stepping forward and speaking directly to Kuro. He wanted to be the first to fight with the UN. It wasn't pride, it was something colder. He needed to know how far he could go. Kuro told Nohegi to go back downstairs, and muttered that if he was bored, he should brawl with the delinquents downstairs. Kuro and Hibi opened the door to the rooftop. Yamada was also sitting there somewhere in a corner. Kuro tried to offer a sliver of comfort. He noted that Noheji's surname might be cool, but Hibi's name, Miracle Thunder, was no less bizarre. He should own it, wear it like armor. A voice cut through their hesitation like a slap. Yamada approached them. "The battle's already begun," she said flatly. She asked them to come forward and begin the battle. At Kawado's place, the advanced AI bike started talking to her. The bike asked Kawado to start its engine. Shinobu seemed interested in riding the bike. Kawado started the bike's engine. Shinobu got on the bike and drove it swiftly, as if he were a professional biker. Kato activates an RWS system. No warning shots required. He set the delivery cars to shoot anybody who tries to leave the school. Inside the nursing room, Hachiya stood calm, analyzing the enemy's strategy. He wished he could escape the school. Marco said she would protect him. The corridor was the bottleneck. If the cube took position in the courtyard, its advance would be blocked, the school director announced. A movement was spotted in the south wing. If the attacker's goal was Hachiya, the corridor must be secured. Suzuki acknowledged the plan. She and her partner Onikobe would split and trap the enemy in a pincer move, a 50-50 chance of guessing the right corridor. Suzuki volunteered to take the risk. If she guessed wrong, backup had to come fast. Onikobe agreed without hesitation. In the hallways, panic crept along the walls like a second skin. A teacher begged students to return to class, assuring them that officials were verifying whether the intruder alert was just a misunderstanding. Suzuki walked into the hallway, recoiled from the smell of blood. She spotted the attacker hiding behind the teacher. He cut the teacher's head off brutally. Onikobe quickly arrived to give backup to Suzuki, but it was a bit late. Then, he moved his attention towards Oniobi. He said his first target is Oniki and he will deal with Susuki later. Kato entered the hallways, riding inside the cube. He grabbed Satura with one hand. He took him downstairs and informed the ninja labs to launch a fire to finish the UN. But the girl from the ninja lab guided him to take the target outside the building. Unfortunately, the attacker escaped from the grip of the cube. Scene shifts. Kuro guides Hibi to take things easy and calm himself. The fight begins instantly. Hibi reacts with the fury of a cornered animal. But Yamada doesn't even flinch. She mocks Hibi for being all brute strength with no finesse. Hibi roars, pushing through, desperate to land a solid hit. Kuro stands at a distance and keeps encouraging Hibi to relax and fight against Yamada. Hibi attacked Yamada with lightning and thunder, but electricity had no effect on the monstrous girl. Hibi sat on his knees with trembling legs. Sweat beaded down his face. Sato and Noguchi heard a scream far off, muted by walls. Sato turned her head toward the sound, eyes narrowed. She had left the classroom against protocol. She claimed she was chasing a story worthy of their school paper. They encountered Suzuki, sitting with her half-leg cut. She asked if she could get a life. Noguchi helped her. Suzuki said Sato would be recording everything using her camera, so she played the role of a record keeper. Then they reached the gym. For a moment, there was silence. It felt like safety, but then the silence spoke. The voice came from a fire extinguisher, a clear and mechanical voice embedded in the object. It issued new directions. The voice guided the girls toward the room beside the gym stage, which was the next checkpoint. The school's director talked to them through the extinguisher. They found a door beside the stairs. Behind it, a staircase descended into shadow. Then came the warning. The director said they would still be caught in the blast if the escape were attacked. Noguchi was curious about this escape thing, so she asked Suzuki about it. Escape is a top-secret orbital weapons platform run by Ninja Labs. Anyone who learned of its existence often vanished. They were beneath the blast zone now. One hit and they'd be vaporized. Still, they continued. The danger behind them was no less fatal. The girl with weird makeup, Meiko, and Hachiya stepped out of the nursing room. They were calm, determined, and deliberate. Satoruin came to fight them. They could sense his presence. She intended to shield Hachiya from harm, even if it meant taking the hit herself. The boy, Hachiya, was no ordinary student. He was the heir to one of the 7 ninja clans, the grandson of Tara, the original head. Satura was on a mission to eliminate him, and now it was time to finish it. Hachiya came forward to fight like a man. Satura mocked him for allowing this. Hachiya said that in close combat, invisibility was a thin veil. He noted the scent of blood on the enemy, not from wounds, but from past killings. He criticized him for cutting down too many. The smell made his position easy to track. Suddenly, the tone shifted. Hachiya told the Satura escape had locked on. Hachiya warned him that the satellite's targeting system had captured him. The laser was aligned. Ozu ordered the girl in the monitoring room to cancel the shot. He shouted that Hachiya would be caught in the blast. Calls for an immediate halt rang out. Hachiya told Meiko to attack the Satura with her weapon. Meiko didn't wait. She attacked, but right after getting hit on the leg, the Satura jumped out of the building and ran. But before leaving, he killed Marco. Hachiya stared at her and acknowledged the truth that without her, he would have died. He thanked her, not as a peer, but as someone who now owed her his life. As the next head of the ninjas, he would carry that debt forward. On the other hand, Suzuki and the other 2 girls descended through the hidden passage behind the gym. It wasn't a tunnel. The place used to be part of a much older system. Suzuki explained that this was once a counterfeit money factory. She continued, saying that during the 1980s, while Japan celebrated the bubble economy above ground, this facility printed fake currency underground. The scale had been massive, too perfect to detect, or possibly too convenient to expose. Noguchi questioned the practicality. Suzuki said the biggest challenge in counterfeiting wasn't the ink or the machinery, it was the paper. This place once housed a full-scale paper production line. Before Escape was launched, when ninja forces were still manually dealing with underground threats, Kato detected the bloodstains on the school's building and ordered Onikobe to head to the rooftop to eliminate Satura for good. Back on the rooftop of the other building, Kuro checked his hand and realized he had worn his ring on the wrong finger. He switched it to his dominant hand, raised his arm like an antenna, and adjusted to improve signal reception. His sword came flying in his hand. It was not just a sword, it was a machine-integrated drone weapon, fully operational. He prepared to strike. Karu analyzed things about his opponent in his mind. The electric attacks had already failed on Yamada. Now poison was ineffective too. The enemy's body had resisted everything. Someone remarked that the muscles are unaffected by toxins. As Kuro moved, Yamada commented that the fight would end too quickly with a sword. Kuro's upper body turned, partially invisible. The cat, Shinoda, was running the bike so well. He used to ride bikes when he was human. Onikobe faced Satura on one rooftop, and Yamada and Kuro were ready to fight on the other. The winners are still undecided. The edge of a glance could have sliced the tension in the air. Yamada stood, opposing Kuro. She wasn't ordinary, more like a monster in Kuro's eyes. Kuro's internal airbags, engineered for impact absorption, gave him an eerie resilience. The odds of a fatal strike, the margin for survivability. He spoke as if death were merely another variable to adjust. Shinobu comes riding on the bike trying to enter the school. The entrance was blocked by delivery cars. On the rooftops above, injured Onikobe was walking slowly. Saruta observed the bloodstains and followed them to find Onikobe. Kato was also looking for Onikobe to help her, but it was too late. Onikobe caught herself in a Saruta trap and stopped right in the forehead. In the ninja lab, Taira was shown a series of images, a suit being sliced, but no one was inside. UN had slipped away. The data stream, sent from a reconnaissance satellite, clarified that the armor was empty. Taira asked the monitoring girl why AniKapped wasn't warned if surveillance had tracked the UN's movements. The betrayal was subtle but sharp. She confessed her role had been to analyze the UN's equipment, not its movements. The failure hung like a verdict. The UN suit was no longer what they assumed. Initial assumptions marked it as a chemical defense suit, but closer inspection revealed something different. The anti-UV coating on the goggles and the rear connection ports weren't standard military tech. They were remnants of a spacesuit assembly. The implications grew heavier. Taira said if true, then UN's true aim wasn't just combat. It was infiltration of the highest order. And perhaps something worse, that UN is after the escape, the girl continued. Recently, a rocket was launched, one with no official satellite payload. Its cargo limit was under 100 kilograms, but if the suit carried a life support module, it would function as a low-orbit insertion unit. It would mean more than espionage. It meant targeting the database of over 200,000 identities stored in a hidden server. These records were located in low orbit inside Escape. Kato called out. The UN had been located. He ordered an immediate strike. Taira said if he were the UN, he'd seize control of Escape while he was stealing the data. Scene shifts to Escape. Control systems signaled an alert. A robotic figure comes to inform that the Ninja Lab has already discovered that the UN suit is a spacesuit. It tells that the UN is after the Escape. All orders to fire were being recommended to stop. There was a high likelihood that the enemy was already inside the Escape's airspace. In worst-case scenario, Escape would lose all the 9 agent data and the control over the satellite. The intruder enters the Escape through emergency door. Temperature warnings blared. The system is prepared to fire its laser at maximum output. Simultaneously, its cooling functions were disabled. As the laser powered up, a realization dawned. The attacker had lured them into this move. Panic spread as the intruder realized he had been caught. The scene snapped back to school grounds. Kuro attacked Yamada's nose. He thought he's about to win. But turn of events, Yamada murdered Kuro. His eyes, face, and body slowly got drenched in blood. She stabbed him right in his face. Hibi could not believe Kuro ended up dead. 1 minute before Kuro's murder, the guy Kato had caught told him that once he had encountered the UN for the first time, the day he saw a disguise of Ninja Sasama behind the graves. Suddenly, blue lightning fell from the sky and hit Kato. The school building collapsed. Meanwhile, Ozu called someone and the plan to conceal everything intensified. A staged methane explosion was set to erase the evidence. Official scripts for emergency response were distributed. Everything would be blamed on a gas leak. Nothing about the UN or Escape would be discussed. He guided the team to wrap everything up as soon as possible. Within moments, the cleanup began. The facts could not be undone, but the future was still open. The fireball from the staged explosion still lingered in the memory of those who survived it, but the world above had already moved on. Sirens screamed in the distance. But to the fiction crafted for the public, a methane gas leak. The scene shifts to a strange room. 5 old ladies gather there to cast a vote on a weird-looking machine. They all wish to be young again before they die. The broadcast from Escape had ceased. The laser system had been halted at the last second. But the silence was not relief. It was anticipation. The data server containing decades of classified ninja records had been accessed somewhere. At the rooftop, Hibi, disheartened by Kuro's death, stood in shock. H recovered Kuro's half-cut face. He saw that Kuro had something in his hand. After opening Kuro's palm, Hibi smiled and said, "You did it, man." Kuro had retrieved a physiological sample from a UN agent. Taira told the monitoring girl to make a detailed report. He informed her about AniKapped's death and Kato's condition. Kato had been called into a secret tribunal. His days of command were numbered. The court of ninja law would not be merciful. Scene shifts to the place where Kuro used to live. Eita went inside Kuro's room. Kuro was gone. Not just missing, but confirmed dead. Ono, Eita, and Kawado sat together, delving into the sorrows of Kuro's death. Why had everything escalated this way? Eita told the other two he saw Kuro's head in Yamada's hand. Police told Kawado that only relatives would be invited to Kuro's funeral. The 3 of them were remembering their interactions with Kuro over some drinks when a guy with glasses on entered the room. He introduced himself as Juniro Kumogakure, Kuro's brother. Kawado invited him to sit, but he refused. Before leaving the room, Junior said he wasn't living with his brother, so he felt disconnected from all that had happened. Noguchi was tired from the mess that had happened during the day, set her bed to go to sleep. Suddenly, someone crawled into her blanket. A girl in a hoodie introduced herself as Toichi Kumogakure. A guy named Tensan with exact facial features as Kuro interrupted Juniro. Juniro was looking at the footage of his brother's incident. Juniro said he can't change the facts, but he can change the future by learning from the past. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.